excited to interview Tyler today. You're looking great, Tyler. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for dressing up this morning. Before we kick off into the more serious questions, I've got a bit of a speed round for Tyler prepared. You'll have a couple answers, Tyler. A couple seconds to answer each question. There's only three, so it should be pretty quick. Let me know when you're ready to go.
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Very good. Hot dogs, hamburgers. Which one?
Hot dogs.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, sorry. I didn't think I'd say hot dogs. I'm learning. I'm learning about myself. Dogs.
Dogs. Superman or Batman?
Oh, Batman.
Okay, there we go. You answered all three correctly, so that's good.
You actually can't see this, but I have a shit ton of Batman stuff.
Right above you?
Are you gonna? I can swear, right? There's a bunch of Batman stuff right up there. There's also Ninja Turtle stuff right there, and some Batman books there.
You've got too much cool stuff. I've got like a cat litter behind me, which is really exciting as well. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, before we jump in, Tyler, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit for the folks who may not know you as well as I do, and your weird lawn creeping interview tactics?
What's your mug there? Is that you?
What's that?
Sorry, I thought your mug was your face. Oh no,
that's not. Michael Scott.
Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Tyler Calder. I am the head of marketing at PartnerStack. Been here for about a year. So started part-time last January, went full-time in April. Still full-time, luckily. What else would you like to know? Largely an agency background for probably about 7 years. And then about 6 or 7 years in-house, working typically with startups, early stage, high growth, etc.
Very good. And you're a Raptors fan, so that's important too.
It is important.
Okay. I have about 10 questions lined up here. So let's see. Yeah, lots of questions. Let's dive in. So let's start from the beginning. So when you mentioned you started, part-time, then went to full-time with us as we slowly ramped up our marketing team because we were operating for quite some time without one. What are some of the first steps of building your marketing department when you first started here, since you were a solo shop and then obviously added in the team members that we have right now?
Sure. Yeah, that's it's a really good question. And it's a good question because I think, and I'll warn people, I'm probably going to ramble. So Christine, get ready to edit. I think it's a really good question because I think a lot of people actually have a ton of anxiety around, I think certainly people have a ton of anxiety about starting a new job. And I think regardless of how many times you've been put in a position to maybe start a department or grow a department, and for me, that's been about 4 or 5 times, there's always an element of like, do I actually know what I'm doing? And I talk to a lot of other marketing leaders about this, and for the most part, everybody feels the same. Where, regardless of how many times you've done it, there's always a question of like, hey, am I doing this the right way? And are there some ways I can level up about it? And I share that because I actually think that that's a strength, and I try to lean into that anxiety a little bit. I think where I've seen new leaders fail is they come in with a prepackaged playbook that they've executed on before, and they just assume it will work again. And if it doesn't, they're lost, right? They don't necessarily know how to pivot or react. So I try to lean into that anxiety of like, do I actually know what I'm doing? And by leaning into that, I just try to question everything. And so I really try not to come in saying, hey, I did this in a previous role. It worked really, really well. These are the types of people I hired. This is what we focused on first. Let's just do the same thing and try to replicate it. And it's kind of hard to resist doing that sometimes because you were hired for your prior success, right? So there is this nudge towards doing the exact same thing because that's why you were hired. So for me, I try to come in and I try to say, okay, I don't know anything. So there's a couple things I need to get real about. The first one is I need to get real about the numbers. So my focus for the first little bit was just understand the business from a number standpoint, a metric standpoint. Now, from a marketing perspective, there were no metrics, right? There literally was no marketing in place. So I was just trying to get a sense of, how do we look at the business from a revenue standpoint? What do our conversion rates through the funnel look like, which at the time was more or less all sales driven. And then start to think about, okay, how should we be thinking about and measuring this particular business? So that's one, is just get real about the numbers and what the current state looks like. The next is the people. So if you're inheriting a team, like really just look at the team very critically, evaluate them against sort of what a best in class team would be. And that might sound harsh doing that coming in, but that's the reality. You need to get real about the people very quickly. Now, again, at PartnerStack, there were no people. So that was like, okay, cool. So that part's easy. But then you start to think about, okay, well, if there are no people and I get to build something, let's really be deliberate about the types of skill sets that I want to bring in. So I sat down and started to think about, what are those competencies? What are those characteristics? If we're going to start from scratch, what does that look like? So numbers first, people, and then the market. So just understanding our customers, try to talk to some, get an understanding of the competition. And you try to do that really quickly, right? Like I try to do all of that within week one, right? Because at the end of the day, we need to move quickly and we need to action things pretty quickly. The other area where I think a lot of new marketing leaders fall down is they're like, I'm going to spend the first 6 months just understanding the business and, getting to know people, and it's far too long. So try to do that really, really quickly. And then just start to run some tests and experiments. So for me, it was, before I hire anybody, let's just run some tests, some experiments, see what's working. So for us, that was running some paid search ads. It was seeing if we could drive any sort of movement on G2 Crowd, starting to see if there's an opportunity around content. And then based on the results of those tests, you figure out where you want to double down. And then wherever you're doubling down, you go hire people to go and do that. So I don't really start out with this premise of, I need to have a content person, I need to have a paid search person, I need to have an analytics person, I need to have an ops person. It's, for this particular business, what do we think is going to work right out of the gate? Be hands-on myself, figure that out, and then go hire people to own it. And that's kind of the approach that I took. My future answers I'll try to condense.
Oh, that was a lot of good detail. And
does that help? Does that answer the question?
It does. Yeah, actually, I don't need to answer. I remember when you did initially start this, there was a ton of work that you were doing, and now we've seen the benefits of all of that work that you did, and then as you brought in the marketing team, kind of piece by piece. Whatever you did, it worked. As you look at 2021, I know there's a ton to talk about in terms of initiatives and thoughts and potential hiring and roles and all sort of stuff. But is there one, we talk about taking that big swing with the Everest Award. Is there a big swing for 2021 that you're thinking of? Does something stand out? Or is it more a bunch of smaller initiatives that will kind of total up to being a bigger swing?
Oh, I mean, basically what you just said. I don't like the notion of a big swing. Big swings more often than not lead to pretty big misses. And all of the research in the world actually suggests the best performing companies don't take big swings. Now, it might appear like a big swing, but it's been after, to your point, a lot of small swings. So if anybody's read the book, I think it's Great by Choice with Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great. He talks a lot about this in terms of some of the best performing companies in the world. And he talks about like firing your cannonball, right? Before you fire that big cannonball, you want to take a bunch of smaller shots, right? So you fire small shots, you recalibrate, you learn. And then when you fire that big cannonball, you're very confident that it's going to hit the target because you've run these tests and experiments. That's how I want us to operate. And I actually think G2 is an example of that. Like me, I've never invested into G2. This is the first time in my career I've ever put a focus on G2. And the reason is it started as a small test. We went from like the 15th positioned to the 9th in Q1 very easily. It only took a couple additional reviews. And then, Joe took it over and he did a phenomenal job going from 9th to 4th, putting in a lot of automation, a lot of process. But it was still a little bit of an experiment. And then, going from 9th to 4th is like, yeah, you know what, let's make a shot and let's take our shot and try to go for number 1 and really hit this. And so that's how we decided to do it. It wasn't, hey, we're going to strive for number 1 on G2. It's like, hey, let's see if there's something here. And so that's how I want us to think about it. Because big swings scare me, especially when we're at this size. We have limited resources, and so we want to have a level of certainty. Now, with that said, we do want to encourage big swing type of thinking. We just want to figure out how do we break the big swing into bite-sized pieces and tests and experiments. So looking into 2021, there's really two, and this will probably be one of your questions, but there's two big focus areas. There is driving predictability within the mid-market. Everybody knows the vast majority of leads that we drive are SMB. We need to do that for mid-market. That's focus 1. And focus 2 is the network. So how do we actually realize the potential of the network? I don't think we have a great handle on that. And so for me, the general big swing is the network. How do we extract as much value out of it? And how do we make sure both our vendors and our partners are extracting as much value out of it? I don't know how we do that. I actually don't think many people in the company know how we do that, if anybody. So the big swing is just deciding to put a very deliberate focus on it and running a bunch of tests and experiments. And then when we're ready, firing our shot.
Yeah, no, you're right. That was something that came up in a couple of the questions, discussing how we make that pivot from SMB to mid-market. Obviously, yes, we have had some mid-market and enterprise leads come in, which is awesome. And now I'm assuming your team's thinking, how do we replicate that, scale that, automate that? What do you think was did you see any reason behind why it was mostly SMB? Was it the type of marketing that we were doing? Was it just more in that SMB search algorithm, or just areas that they were going? Any thoughts as to why we were getting mostly SMB type customers coming through that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. One is we were certainly targeting SMB, and we were targeting SMB for a couple of reasons. One is just from an economic standpoint, they close faster, and the average contract value was starting to creep up to be a lot higher than when I started. Like Clayton, I think had done a good job really pushing for increasing some of our contract values. And we kind of looked at what was our path to hitting our growth target for the year, and it was about being opportunistic. That was the most obvious, so let's just go get it. So that was one, was targeting SMB. Now, with that said, I think there's a couple other factors. One is there's just a shit ton of them, right? Like there's so many SMBs, and there's a new one every week, right? Or there's probably 100 new ones every single week. And so in terms of the market size, it's always growing. It's huge. There's always a new startup that just got seed funding or Series A and is looking for ways to grow. And I think we have a pretty good talk track around that. And most of them are unvended, right? Most of them aren't using any sort of tech right now. And so it's, we're not having to have displacement conversations. We're not pitching against somebody and trying to convince them to rip it out. I think it's a slightly easier sale. I'm not a salesperson, so I don't want to suggest that it is easy. But I think the conversation might be a little bit more linear, I suppose. And mid-market is a little bit different. More of them will be vended. we bump up against competition a little bit more. Um, I think, from a product standpoint, um, just some deficiencies in our ability to really confidently sell into mid-market. Um, so that those are some of the reasons why SMB kind of took off. Now, in terms of going after mid-market, it is a lot of the same tactically, but the messaging changes a little bit. And our alignment with sales will have to change. So when I say alignment with sales, to go after mid-market and upper mid-market, like we will need to get clear on who our target accounts are, how do we want to go after them, and get very account based in our approach. And that has to be like pure alignment between sales and marketing. And we're starting that now. So Joe's working on an initial ABM, account-based marketing pilot. We'll start by working with the BDR team to, again, right, take small shots, run some tests, run some experiments. When we figure out what approach to ABM works for us, and I'm pretty confident it will, then we take the bigger shot and start to roll it out across the AE team and kind of set clear expectations around what marketing does, what sales does, that type of thing.
I love that. I think we're all excited and looking forward to it. I mean, selfishly as a salesperson, last year was awesome to be a sales rep and to be in that kind of SMB mid-market space, seeing kind of the fruits of your labor and the team's labor. So we're excited to see that trickle up and have a lot of confidence there. Pivoting a bit to the marketplace, because that was something you mentioned too. It is definitely, we recognize it as a huge differentiator. When you're promoting this or talking about this in some of the upcoming marketing pieces, collateral, messaging, who do you see as like our customer in those marketing efforts, right? Like our ideal customer, who are we? Do we have that yet for the marketplace?
So I want to be clear on the question. So when we pitch the marketplace network, whatever we end up calling it formally, who are we pitching that to? Like, who's our ideal customer profile to be pitching the network to?
Yep. The specific question is, who do you see as our customer in our marketing efforts moving forward regarding the marketplace?
Got it. So it's a really good question, and a part of the answer is uncertainty. So one of the goals that I put forth to the board was for Q1, just actually getting a better handle on this. One of the things, just, candidly, and I shared this actually with Bryn earlier, the only thing that makes me nervous right now is that there isn't an owner for the marketplace company-wide. And because of that, I think there's a lack of clarity on who that ICP is, how we should talk about it, how do we productize it, how do we monetize it. There's a lot of things there. And so for Q1, I want to put a lot of thought to it. In terms of who our audience is and our customer, my instinct is it doesn't change all that much, right? My instinct is the customer is still a SaaS company that is looking for growth opportunity, and our network can be that growth opportunity. For me, we need to bring that to life, and bringing that to life means making sure that the vendors that we sign are comfortable being in the network and the marketplace, which not all of them are. It's like, okay, if they're not, well, why not? How do we fix that? Downstream, once they're in the marketplace, there's certainly feedback that they get a lot of junk, right? I have to waste time combing through a bunch of shit. Okay, cool. How do we address that? How do we look at that? How do we fix that? But the general value prop and the customer, I don't actually think changes too much, at least not in the short term. Longer term, it might, once we get into like more enterprise conversations and like big distribution conversations. But at least for the first half, I view the customer as more or less being the same. right? We have a channel and a network that can help you grow and can help you grow a lot faster than other channels at a lower cost to acquire. Um, I think we just need to lean into that um, with more clarity and more confidence. I think is the important part.
Definitely. Yeah, I think without the right messaging, sometimes I've even experienced this where people think it's almost like it's going to cost them to use our marketplace. That's
Mhm.
that's the wrong idea of it. So yeah, getting that across effectively, I think um, everyone's really excited about having that be just clear for everyone at the company and for our customers and potential customers. So that's super exciting. This is kind of a two-part question, kind of for last year and then for this year looking forward. Um, Looking back at last year, where did the majority of our leads come from? And then as we look into 2021, are there other go-to-market strategies that we're thinking of, like SEO summits? Obviously, G2 was one. Yeah. So last year, where did the majority come from? This year, what other go-to-market strategies are we thinking of?
Yep. So the majority of our leads came from what I'll just categorize as organic. But the category organic in this sense, at least for 2020, is a little bit misleading. So typically when you hear organic, what we think of in marketing is people going to Google, typing in best PRM software, finding our website, coming, booking a demo, that type of thing, right? We would consider that organic. When we look at our organic channel right now, we're not actually ranking for anything meaningful. Like we are not ranking on Google for best PRM software. When we look at organic, it's largely being driven by G2. So there is very clear correlation between our improved ranking on G2 and the organic traffic that we get. So that happens a couple ways. One is people are looking for PRM software. They see us on G2, they Google our name, they come to us organically. The other is G2 ranks really well, right? So one of the reasons we did want to look at G2 was because it will take a long time for us to rank ourselves. But G2 is already there. So when somebody types in best PRM software, G2 is one of the top three. So they'll get the organic traffic, they'll see us, then they'll come to us. So our organic, it was our best performing channel, but it was largely driven by that. And then secondary to that would be paid media channels. So specifically LinkedIn as our top paid channel and some of those conversation ads that Joe's been running and Forrest. And then we're looking at like Facebook advertising, Capterra advertising, ads on Google, that type of thing.
Awesome. Do you foresee a challenge like keeping the G2 piece up while doing some of these net new strategies, or is that pretty baked out and easier to maintain now that it's there?
Yep, bang on. Like it was a lot of effort to start, but Joe, Sean, and John, the three of them have put in a lot of processes that automate a huge chunk of this. There'll always be a flurry of activity at the end of every quarter, which is when they publish their new reports. But it won't be as big of an effort. So I see us in a good spot to maintain our position. And I also see us in a good spot where it doesn't actually need to be a huge focus anymore.
That's great. Let's see here. I think last two questions, but I'll just do them one at a time. Do you foresee there being a trend of embedding marketing tech into partner ecosystems in 2021, i.e., ticketing, Slack?
So I take this question as like picture somebody logging into PartnerStack. Right in there, there's integrations or our own native tools to help them accomplish this other stuff.
Yes.
Is that kind of what we're? I think there will be I think that's a wouldn't it be cool type of thing. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? I think I don't think that's something that will be a focus in 2021 in terms of us actually productizing. Um, uh, it's interesting, right? The pendulum always swings from companies wanting to log into one system to do everything to realizing that that if you do that, you don't get the best of everything. And so, going back to SaaS and how we think about it, right? You end up kind of bundling and creating your own tech stack that's unique to you. Um, I do think as we start to talk about things like co-marketing and baking that in, there'll be things that are table stakes to partnerships that should be baked in. Ticketing is probably a good example of that as well. So I see us thinking about that. I see customers asking for it. Um, Uncertain about where that line gets drawn, right? And I think that's part of a product conversation that would need to happen. But certainly a trend of people asking for it. Just because they ask for it, though, doesn't mean it's necessary. So that's just the thing that I want to really focus on as just a company, right? Like when we talk to customers, it's not about saying like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have learning management baked in? It's like, yeah, that would be cool. And then we have 3 customers use it. Right. And so we really want to focus on what is it that they're actually trying to accomplish that will help them do their job better and more meaningfully, and build that, versus maybe just the first thing that comes out of their mouth.
Definitely. Yeah, it's always exciting that if we can do it is always, the answer is always yes, we could do it, but there's always a lot more behind it. So that makes sense. Do you own more hats or sweaters?
Oh, hoodies specifically.
Hoodies, so yes.
Yeah, yeah. I don't own many sweaters. I don't look good in sweaters, but I look fucking great in hoodies. I probably shouldn't say that. I do own a lot of hats though. I have them all hanging on my door. There is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I have about 33 hats in here.
Okay. So
saying it out loud, that seems like a lot. How many hats do you have?
Me, I've probably got a dozen, but they're all stacked. I don't have a hanger. I need to get something like that. I do not have as many hoodies as you. I've probably got 4 or 5.
Oh, you need more hoodies.
I do. I do. So more hats than hoodies?
Oh no, more hoodies.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Well, that was my last question. I threw in the hats one because we were in one. I thought I'd compare and contrast.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You have one ask of marketing. What is it?
I have one ask of marketing.
And don't shy away. You can be as candid, as blunt, as hard hitting as you want.
I mean, I'm
a safe place.
I'm an executive, so I'm selfish.
Yeah.
I'm really looking at the companies that are with our competitors. Like I want to go and take away all of our competitors' business because some of them are super shady and other ones aren't as shady, but they still are competitors. So I want every time somebody even thinks the word partner and it comes up in any sort of SEO, any sort of blog, any sort of anything, I want us to be there, but I want those to be those competitive, like mid-market, getting into some of those 500 employee plus companies and just rip away some of their best logos. Like I know Allbound has Zoom as a customer. I know that would obviously be enterprise, but like I want them. I want to take them away. So anytime I think of a competitor taking a potential mid-market customer away from us, especially without us even being in the conversation, which I don't know how often happens, that's where I go, if marketing can help us in any way, always, 100% of the time be in that conversation, that's what I'm asking for. I know that's kind of a abstract ask, but
no, it's a great ask. And Christine, you tell me if I should say this on a recording, but I think as a marketing team, we're very humble. but we are very quietly competitive. And there are some competitors that, I'll just say it, like we will plan a kill shot. Like there are competitors where we know that they are hurting. We do not like the way that they play. And talking about big swings, you know, it's one thing to say, hey, you know, we should target so-and-so and we should take them down. It's another thing to kind of sit at your desk and quietly think about the specific steps you're going to take them out. And that's what we're thinking about, because I don't want some of them to get back up.
That makes me, I'm beaming. Yes, I have a light here, but like I'm literally, that's very exciting to hear. And I'm glad, because I was literally typing a message yesterday to, I forget to who, and then I erased it because I was like, no, I don't want to ask this. Like, how do we plan what you're planning? So I'm glad that's happening. Maybe I won't have to ask it because it's already being done. So that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, that's it for me, Tyler. This was a lot of fun, and very interesting. A lot of really valuable insights I didn't know before asking you these questions. And I got to dress up for it too. So that's kind of fun too.
I bought an ironing board for this.
What's that?
I bought an ironing board for this so I could iron my shirt.
I had to steam the shirt. I mean, I'm still wearing sweatpants as the bottoms, but
oh, totally, 100%. I went full in on Lulu.
Actually, the bottom half of the shirt is so wrinkly. I knew I was only going to be like chest.
Oh yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Cool.
I'm still keeping that dialogue in this.
Yeah, this was cool. I do recognize that a lot of my answers were fairly surface level. So like to the sales team, if anybody ever wants to get like really into the weeds, always happy to like break down exactly what we're pushing out into the market, the channels we're using, how we think about measurement. Like it depends on how much you want to geek out about it. The stuff that, you know, we think is helpful to sales, and we want to make sure sales has, we will, right? So new pieces of content, making you aware of campaigns so you know where people are coming from, all of that certainly. But if anybody's interested in really getting into the weeds, happy to go there.
Good to know.
Cool.
I'll extend that out to the sales team as well, and yeah, make sure that they have, after they watch this, if they have any questions, they can dig in.
Cool. Well, thanks for this. Half of your face was well lit the whole time, which was great.
Sorts of fun stuff with this.
Christine, any closing? You should have the last word, I think.
I should have the last word. Well, thank you, Tyler and Adam. You definitely were the spiffiest people thus far.
And best? Was this the best one?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I haven't seen Daniel's yet with the news. So,
fucking Daniel.
That might.
But what about Eric and Star? Did we do better than them?
I'm not stack ranking you guys. You're all important people.
Isn't this a competition? I thought we won money.
You win money for the breakout. So you have to do a kick-ass pitch deck to make the MoFu team win.
I thought this
Adam's
was
on the MoFu team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There you go. Well, no, so thank you both very much. Much appreciative. As we go through this and I deliver it, there will be some reflection questions and asks. Tyler giggles. So Tyler, you may see some action items coming out of this as well. So
yep. All good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.